Should Spider-Man kill his enemies permanently? Or should he beat them up and leave them for the cops? What happens when they get out of jail and threaten him again? What happens when they follow him home and attack his Aunt May? And what happens when they inevitably take away someone he loves for good? Today we will attempt to answer those questions and more, because this version of Peter Parker downright snapped. He's so far gone, he swung into the Daily Bugle and broke every finger on Jonah Jameson's hand. Nuff said. This story takes place around the time of issue 258 of Amazing Spider-Man, and answers the question, what if Spider-Man had kept the black suit? Peter wakes with a jolt from another recurring dream where he can't save the ones he loves from his enemies. Things haven't been easy for Peter lately. His Aunt May won't talk to him since he dropped out of school. He's getting no sleep, and he's been messing things up with Mary Jane and Black Cat. The only thing going in his favor is this strange new suit he picked up on an alien world not long ago. Made out of an unearthly material, equipped with unlimited webbing, and the fact that it responds to his thoughts make him more powerful than ever. For example, these muggers are quite unlucky Spider-Man happened to be swinging by and jumps down to meet them. One of the men threatens the lady, and Peter's had enough. When will they learn? There's so much strength surging through him, and he questions what makes their lives worth sparing. But it's not for him to decide, at least not now. So he encases them in webbing and leaves them for the police. Peter hears a voice in his head, but he has no idea yet that it's the suit. Later on, he's trying to catch up on sleep when MJ walks into his apartment as he wakes up thrashing out of another nightmare. He throws MJ headfirst into a bookshelf. She's here to check up on Peter because he's been acting so differently, and she's also having trouble wrapping her head around the whole situation because she just recently found out that he's Spider-Man. But for the sake of their friendship, she wants him to know that she's here for him no matter what. Later still, Peter decides to finally let Reed Richards check out the suit like he's been asking to. But on his way, the suit clams up and refuses to fire any webbing, forcing him to land on a nearby building where he spots Hobgoblin. With his webbing functioning normally again, Spidey punches Hobgoblin off his glider and knocks him out of the sky completely, sending him shattering onto a vehicle. But not without a return fire pumpkin bomb blowing up in Spider-Man's face, launching him backward. Hobgoblin directly threatens Spider-Man's life, and though he doesn't know it yet, he's made his final threat. Spider-Man shoots out strands of webbing past Hobgoblin and into the car behind him, yanking it back toward him and shattering Goblin's back. But Peter ain't done. He beats him over the head repeatedly and unmasks him, calling him out as Roderick Kingsley and telling him to spread the message. Spider-Man is playing for keeps from now on. No more fighting. If you oppose him, Spider-Man will dismantle you completely. Spider-Man swings off to a rooftop where he embraces Black Cat and kisses her. He tells her he feels weird for being that hard on Hobgoblin, but his normal tactics ain't cutting it anymore. Before he swings off to find Reed Richards, she lets him know that she supports whatever he deems necessary. We jump over to Reed enclosing Spider-Man and a human-sized scanner, and upon a close examination, Reed figures out that the suit is sentient. He's able to deduce that the creature is symbiotic in nature and is directly influencing Peter, its host's thoughts and actions. Reed suggests Peter remove it immediately, but Peter claims he won't subject it to a life of imprisonment. But if you ask me, Peter doesn't want to give up how powerful he feels by wearing it. Peter instinctually finds himself going to Aunt May's house. He knocks on her door, knowing she hasn't wanted to see him, and when she answers, she invites him in. As they sit down for tea, Peter explains that things haven't been going well for him, and that he felt like seeing his Aunt May was the only thing that could center him. May apologizes to Peter for cutting him off, but right at that moment, the Hobgoblin strikes, having followed Spider-Man to this house and demolishing the walls on his glider. Spider-Man clobbers Kingsley out of the house and onto the street, and started to beat the brakes off him until he realizes the house is on fire and Aunt May is still inside. He tries to run back in, but the suit stops him and says no. The suit tells Peter that it can't withstand fire. The suit says it's sorry, but Aunt May perishes in the fire while Peter stands outside watching. The suit tells Peter it's all Kingsley's fault. He did this. At this point, Goblin is dazed and starting to second guess whether he should have did this. Spider-Man starts spinning a giant web, wraps him in a cocoon, and Kingsley starts pleading, saying Spider-Man started this by unmasking him. But there's no trace of Peter Parker left anymore. There's no one left inside the suit to save him. Spider-Man gouges out Hobgoblin's eyes, splitting his skull open and forcing his brains out through the holes with all his spider strength. Spider-Man has the power to make sure Hobgoblin never harms anyone else again. So that's what he's gonna do. Peter Parker had a responsibility. With his great power came the responsibility, but throwing guys like Hobgoblin in jail just gave them more time to plot. To murder Gwen Stacy, her father, and now Aunt May. Peter has a new responsibility. Peter and the black alien suit both. Thing is, Peter thought it would feel worse than this, taking Hobgoblin's life, but the suit simply explains that nature gives and nature takes. Make one person an example and everyone else fears. Peter understands this now, but he also doesn't want Mary Jane to find out what he's done, which will be hard to keep from her since the Daily Bugle has labeled Spider-Man as a murderer on the front page of the paper. Peter is sick of the constant bad publicity. The kill was justified. Maybe it's time to start putting fear into people after all. Cut across town, and Kingpin can't believe Spider-Man would do this. Most unfortunate news because, statistically speaking, the guy can afford for Spider-Man to interfere with his operations here and there. What he can't afford is his own death. It's time to make some calls. Over at the Daily Bugle, Robbie doesn't trust what his publisher Jameson is writing about Spider-Man. Could be another guy in the suit for all he knows. Me and you know that's not the case, however, and Spider-Man smashes through the window at that very second to let them know. He instantly slams Jonah into a wall, firing off webs simultaneously to block Robbie from getting through the door. The Spider-Man mask is starting to look less human, and Spider-Man breaks every finger on Jameson's left hand, telling him that if he's a criminal, so be it. He's saving more people now than he ever did before. As he exits the Bugle the way he came in, he tells Jameson if he sees himself in the paper one more time, he's coming back and breaking the other hand. Later on, Mary Jane walks into Peter's apartment again, this time to find him sleeping mid-air, hovering over his bed, propped up by tendrils. The sight is enough to make her panic, but Peter wakes up and calmly explains it's comfortable. Comfortable for us. The symbiote is bonding to him permanently. Peter no longer refers to himself singularly. Mary Jane came to address the newspaper articles, so Peter explains to MJ that he has the power to decide who lives and dies now. For the sake of innocence, he will do what he must. Peter swings off into the night and is not long after attacked by Shocker. Alright, this is where I draw the line. Peter directly refers to him as a second-rate thief, and now after what he did to Hobgoblin, you know what's about to happen to my boy Shocker. You probably won't hear this anywhere else, but anyone who thinks Shocker is a meme, go read Stan Lee's Spider-Man vs. Shocker issue. Enough said. Luckily, Shocker is being backed up by the Scorpion. Kingpin really did make some calls, but Shocker is instantly slammed into a wall with more force than he's ever felt from Spider-Man, who then crams Scorpion's throat full of tendrils, suffocating him to death. Shocker is still reeling from the initial blow, and as he realizes that Spider-Man has truly lost it like Fisk said, he's off-screened. Off-paneled? Off-paneled for me, off-screened for you. Anyway, rip. Spider-Man walks into Fisk's apartment and throws the Shocker's arm and the Scorpion's arm at his feet. Fisk is barely fazed by this and tells Spider-Man after he killed Hobgoblin that they looked up the lady who died in the fire. Since Hobgoblin killed May Parker, that means Spider-Man must be her nephew Peter taking revenge. Fisk couldn't find anyone else close to Peter despite looking, but he's cut short. Spider-Man doesn't care for his speeches anymore. He punches a hole right through his face, splitting it into fragments. Word of the Scorpion and Shocker's death reaches the Sinister Six. The six being Doc Ock, Mysterio, Kraven, Rhino, Electro, and Jameson is a part of the group too. While he believes they should all be locked up, he needs them to take down Spider-Man for everyone's sake. Spider-Man is the most dangerous villain of all according to Jonah, and the best way for the rest of the villains to defend themselves is to take Spider-Man off the board. The strategy and planning will be left to Kraven, and while the rest of them get busy, Doc Ock makes his own plans to take the others out after Spider-Man. Doc Ock is using the henchmen of the Master Planner in this story, which, if you don't know, again, check out Lee and Ditko Spider-Man. Nuff said. One of the purple henchmen, however, literally stabs Doc Ock in the back and reveals himself to be Eddie frickin' Brock. Jameson meets his Sinister Six team at a remote location. Eddie Brock is of course filling in for Doc Ock, tentacles included, and no one can really say anything about it because they need all the help they can get. They've told the Beetle where they will be waiting, and all there is left to do is hope Spider-Man shows up so they could take him out together. Breaking news. The Beetle has been reportedly killed after a fight with Spider-Man. And since Spider-Man tortured him for information first, he's now en route to take out the rest of the villains. As Jameson and Brock keep watch, waiting for Spider-Man, they hear something crunch in the woods. When they go to check it out, they find the beetle, another underrated classic, dead and hung up by webs from the trees. As panic sets in, the six race to attack. Everyone activates goggles that will allow them to see reality while Mysterio's drones terrorize Spider-Man with things that aren't real. But before they realize what's happened, Spider-Man has already dug his way underground and popped up under them, knocking Mysterio out with a helmet-shattering blow. Rhino charges at him, but Spider-Man clobbers him with a force that literally knocks his horn off. Rhino's suit is grafted onto his skin, by the way. He's supposed to be unstoppable. Spider-Man doesn't even give the others the time of day. He knocks out Brock with one punch and snatches Electro up by the face, causing him to start an electrical fire in the barn. Jameson surprises Spider-Man with a mech suit, and Kraven senses Spider-Man's fear toward the fire. Jameson walks Spider-Man into the barn, and Kraven throws a net on him before being thrown back from an explosion. Peter surfaces and begs Jameson to help him as the suit burns. Jameson carries Peter Parker out of the burning building and smacks Kraven over the head, rendering him unconscious. Only Kraven and Eddie Brock survived the fight. Every other villain murdered throughout the story, Peter will have to reconcile with. And maybe it's because he couldn't control the suit, or maybe it's the fact that Jameson has known Peter Parker for so many years. But now that Jameson knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, he's going to help him set things right. Peter can still sense the suit's presence, though, and that's in large part due to the fact it's hitching a ride on the back of the van they're traveling in. Mary Jane and Black Cat are arguing over Peter when Jameson carries him into his apartment. And to make a bad situation worse, the entire police force is waiting outside ready to move in. Turns out, Fisk left a parting gift in the case of his untimely death. The world now knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is wanted for murder. And across town, the symbiote has made its way to the Baxter Building, taking over the body of Reed Richards and set loose all his experiments kept in glass jars. Peter can't surrender to the cops because he needs to go track down the symbiote. Spider-Man will swing out past the cops with Mary Jane, and Black Cat will get Jameson home to safety, where hopefully he will sit the rest of this out. Peter can already see from across town, though, that the symbiote has completely engulfed the Baxter Building. Peter admits to MJ that he doesn't think the suit made him evil. It enhanced the anger in him that was already there. He thought about killing his enemies, so he did. But MJ reminds him that just because it twisted his anger and fed off it, doesn't mean that he's not still the man who fights his darkness and wins every day. The man who May and Ben raised. They share a kiss. Man, Peter has a love triangle going here in this story. Captain America and the Avengers are organizing police barriers around the Baxter Building. Spider-Man shows up to let them know the symbiote wants him to go in there. It's calling for him. This, of course, sets the Human Torch ablaze with frustration because none of this would have happened if Spider-Man had listened and removed the suit like him and Reed said to begin with. Spider-Man lets it roll off and tells everyone the symbiote is weak to fire. But apparently they've already tried that, and the suit has been able to withstand everything they've thrown at it, because it used Reed Richards' knowledge to make itself stronger. Spider-Man wants to give the symbiote what it wants and go inside to confront it, but he has to unmask and convince Captain America he won't let it take control of him again first. Peter puts in an earpiece for comms and steps inside the building, followed by Mary Jane and the Human Torch, neither of whom were supposed to follow him. They aren't asking for permission. The symbiote has grabbed a hold of all the people in the building, putting them into a mindless trance. MJ grabs a gun off of one of the guards at the desk and says, "I don't think he needs it right now." What is she gonna do with that? Spidey and Torch climb up an elevator shaft while MJ takes the stairs. They're quickly met by a mind-controlled Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, who sends Torch blasting into another floor. The Thing grabs Spider-Man and smashes him into the ground, but instead of fearing the thought of giving into his darkness, Peter channels all of his rage and starts moving with a fury, hitting the Thing from every angle before webbing him up, yanking him through the air, and throwing him crashing out of the building to the Avengers. Why not accept a little bit of help after all? The Torch confronts Reed, taken over by the symbiote and locked away inside a fireproof mech suit. The symbiote wants to save everyone by creating more of himself. Torch tries to incinerate him anyway, despite pulling out a shield and saying that while he might be weak to fire, his children aren't. Then proceeds to hit a button, sending the whole building into an eruption of symbiote goo. Torch is trying to raise Spidey on comms, who is still picking himself up from the fight with the Thing. Just as the Torch is about to meet his end at the hands of the symbiote Reed Richards, Mary Jane walks in and fires a bullet that bounces off the mech suit. Eye roll. And as if Mary Jane getting herself into trouble instead of helping, even in an alternate dimension, wasn't bad enough, the Avengers have also all been infected by symbiotes. Peter has to pick himself back up and continue to fight, despite his spider sense not working against the symbiotes. And while he stands his ground, Johnny Blaze has to get MJ out of danger fast, because now that she's placed herself in the line of fire, the symbiote-possessed Reed Richards is reminded that she's the reason the alien can never fully bond with Peter. His love for MJ kept him grounded to his humanity, and the symbiote blames her for getting in the way. Johnny blasts a hole in the ceiling and scoops MJ up out of there before she can be harmed. Luckily for Peter, all the symbiotes abandon him and follow Johnny and MJ, trying to finish them first out of spite, which gives Peter time to go quickly search Reed Richards' lab for something that will give them an edge. He starts to skim through the data Reed collected on the symbiote as Sue Storm packs her son Franklin into a cab and sends him away, giving her peace of mind to fly up into the sky and back up her brother Johnny. In the lab, Peter is able to figure out all the symbiotes were made by the original using pieces of itself combined with Reed Richards' unstable molecules formula. So if they stop the original, all the other will drop dead too. Like putting a stake through the heart of an original vampire. And that's when Peter discovers the game-winning play and summons Johnny Blaze back to him. Sue Storm holds all the symbiotes off with her force field, driving them backward, right up until the moment the symbiote-possessed Thor smashes the shield to pieces. Symbiote Reed grabs Sue and goes to confront Peter, wishing to take him over as his host once again. Instead of fighting, Peter surrenders to the symbiote willingly. But before it leaves Reed, it stabs him with its tendrils through the chest, killing him so he can't interfere with the plans. Peter can't stand the fact that he lets someone else die, but all he can do now is stop any further destruction, so he takes off running into the lab while the symbiote is at his heels. He dashes to the other side of the room, but the symbiote latches onto him before he can make it to the other side. The symbiote goes to take possession of Peter once again, before it realizes this isn't Peter at all. It's actually Johnny Blaze under the disguise of an image inducer who yells "Flame on" and burns the symbiote to a crisp, setting all the other possessed heroes free. See, Reed Richards had invented the thing some years back to disguise Ben Grimm as a normal guy if he ever so wanted to. So, though it might not seem harmful at first glance, it was just the thing Peter needed given the circumstances. Peter's suffered death his whole life as Spider-Man. Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, Captain Stacy, now Reed Richards, and he still has a lifetime to go. When the dust settled, Peter turned himself in. The public knew Peter was Spider-Man, so he needed to answer for his crimes. Since symbiotes had taken control of heroes before, there was already testimonies about not being able to control yourself while wearing them. The trial was over quickly, and Peter was found not guilty with the help of Matt Murdock. Peter later reflects at a cemetery with Mary Jane about all the death and destruction he's caused. How could he ever be Spider-Man again after what he's done? But that's when Sue Storm interrupts them to tell Peter Reed's death wasn't his fault, and that Reed was a guy known for turning tragedy into triumph. A guy who wouldn't succumb to guilt, but would instead do something remarkable with it. Reed was a reminder that you have to look on the other side of tragedy for meaning, and that means Sue and Peter need to move through this together, so she hands him a Fantastic Four patch. The nightmares are over for now, and the future will be fantastic. Kingpin somehow survived. Though his face was shattered, he's still alive, if not well. And he can't believe Spider-Man is back and joining up with the Fantastic Four, when he should be paying for his crimes. Kingpin can't allow this to happen in his city. He must destroy Peter Parker. And the doctors have a solution for Parker and healing Kingpin all at once. A red symbiote that they're keeping inside of a test tube. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I did. It's a phenomenal book, and it starts out so strong. Most people seem to enjoy the pace of it, but if you ask me, it could have been fleshed out a bit more. To me, it feels like we're just coming to terms with unhinged Peter when he's suddenly having the symbiote removed from him, and the story shifts to a Peter versus symbiote book instead of a Peter-possessed book. Which is fine, but then the redemption at the end just seems rushed. Those are my thoughts, but more importantly, I want to hear what you think down in the comments. Hopefully you consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one, 'cause you deserve cinema.